There has been a lot of discussion this week after the Minnesota Vikings advanced to 10-2 and ahead of one of the most anticipated games of the year, where Kirk Cousins faces his former team, the Minnesota Vikings, this weekend. And national pundits are weighing in on Sam Darnold versus Kirk Cousins, and I'm going to dive into that real shortly. But I got a little different thing up my sleeve right now because I watched the Minnesota Wild third intermission, the final few minutes, and I watched the overtime game. And I'm an employee of the Minnesota Wild. I work for their radio network. So I do games every so often. I don't do every game, but I do games about once or twice a week or every other week, depending on how that week looks. And this is my fiery hot take, and I sent this to a hockey guy who plays hockey, who's done hockey his entire life, and I knew my response would be what it was. The hockey guy, and this is before, I'll tell you what he says. He says, I do understand where you're coming from. However, playing hockey my whole life, 5-on-5 is the way. There's so much of the game that would be missed. I do love the 3-on-3 overtime, though. That's for sure. And my hot take is that hockey in the first, second, and third intermission should eliminate 5-on-5 and just play 3-on-3. The entertainment, the product, the amount of plays that are made in 3-on-3 hockey are much more overwhelming than 5-on-5 hockey. And there's more scoring, there's less whistles for offsides and icing. Hockey should always be played 3-on-3. Everyone is always excited to watch 3-on-3 overtime hockey. And there's more just highlights in 3-on-3 hockey. Now, I get it. Hockey 5-on-5, it's the way it's always been. It's the way it should always be. I lose so much of the game. But if you want to advance as a league or as a game ahead of baseball or basketball, you're never going to advance past football and sports that most people enjoy or love. Moving to 3-on-3 is the answer. Because you think about what the NFL has done. The NFL has made their product a more offensive league. Hits are illegal. You can only hit the quarterback at a certain spot. It's a part of the game. Oh, no, you got to be careful. You can't hit the quarterback too high. You can't hit him too low. You can't drive him to the ground the way you used to. It was a part of the game. It used to be the way it was played. But now the quarterback drives the entertainment. So they did what they needed to do to protect that quarterback at all costs. And I think hockey should do a similar thing. You know, you can keep fighting involved. You can keep hitting involved. But, man, 3-on-3 hockey is entertaining. Highlights, scoring, movement, smoothness, less whistles. It's fast. And so that's my take on hockey for the day. But this is a Minnesota Vikings podcast, and we will talk about the Minnesota Vikings. I talked earlier that national pundits are weighing in on Sam Darnold versus Kirk Cousins. And Colin Cowherd chooses Sam Darnold over Kirk Cousins.
Sam Darnold, who in the last 3 games is 3-0, 112 passer rating, 6 touchdowns, no picks.
Sam Darnold, to me, if I was a team and you said Kirk Cousins, Sam Darnold, not even factoring in money.
Oh, God, Darnold.
100%. And then when you factor in one guy's making $40 million, and you're like, is he getting that? But even if he did, if all money's equal, I will take Sam Darnold every day of the week. And again, look who likes him. Kyle loved him. They didn't want to lose him. They couldn't compete with a $10 million what Minnesota gave him. And look what he's done. And I stand by it. Minnesota's got really good coaching.
So that's Colin Cowherd and his co-host, John Middlecalf. And they're a part of the Volume on iHeartRadio. Hey, this podcast is on iHeartRadio. So me and Colin Cowherd are, basically the same guy. And he shares that he would rather have Sam Darnold over Kirk Cousins. And he's right. Sam Darnold is outplaying Kirk Cousins, and it's not even close. Darnold, 23 touchdowns, 10 picks. Kirk Cousins, 17 touchdowns, 13 picks. And I've been talking about this recently, but another thought came into my mind this morning that I hadn't addressed yet. We haven't even considered the division these two quarterbacks are playing in. Kirk Cousins arguably plays in the worst division in football. The Falcons are 6-6. They're tied for first place with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and they hold that tiebreaker because they beat the Buccaneers twice. But you look at who the Falcons have beaten and who the Falcons have lost to this season. They lost to Pittsburgh. They lost to Kansas City. They lost to Seattle. And they got blown out by Denver. They lost to the Chargers, and they lost to New Orleans. And you look at their wins. They had a good win against Philadelphia. They had decent wins against Tampa Bay. But Tampa Bay divisional game, beat them twice. They beat Carolina. They beat the Saints. They also lost to the Saints once. And then they beat the crummy Dallas Cowboys. So 4 of their 6 wins this season have been against weak divisional opponents. And then you think about what the Minnesota Vikings have done this year. You know, the gauntlet that they were supposed to face earlier on in the year, that's not looking so gauntlet right now because the Niners stink and the Houston Texans aren't as good as everyone was anticipating them to be. Well, they beat the Giants. They weren't favored to win that game. The Giants were favored by 1. You look at the San Francisco 49ers. They weren't favored to win that game. Houston Texans, Vikings weren't favored to win that game. Green Bay Packers, Vikings weren't favored to win that game. I think the first game of the year the Vikings were favored to win was against the New York Jets in Week 5 in London. So Vikings start off 5-0 against good quality opponents. They lose to Detroit, lose to the Rams, but they bounce back against the Indianapolis Colts. They beat the crummy Jacksonville Jaguars, beat the crummy Tennessee Titans. But then there were good wins at Chicago. Even though Chicago's a mess, they're a competitive mess. They almost beat the Lions. They beat the Arizona Cardinals, who are vying for a playoff spot against the Seattle Seahawks in comeback fashion. So it's not like Sam Darnold is doing this versus a Carolina, versus the Saints, even versus the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. He is doing this against good quality NFL opponents. And the Minnesota Vikings right now are 2-1 in the NFC North. Beat the Packers on the road, beat the Bears on the road, lost to the Lions at home. And I would bet that the Vikings won't finish 5-1 in the division. They won't beat the Bears at home, Packers at home, and the Lions on the road. But I think it's fair to expect 3-3 in the division or a 4-2 in the division. I don't know if we'll beat the Packers at home. I don't know if we'll beat the Lions on the road. But I bet we beat the Bears at home. I bet we at least win one of those games. So finishing 500 in a challenging NFC North, the best division in football without question, is a good thing. And something that we haven't even factored in yet when we're comparing what Sam Darnold has done in Minnesota versus what Kirk Cousins has done with the Atlanta Falcons. So it's Sam Darnold all day, every day, as of right now. And another thing to consider is just how much Sam Darnold can move in the pocket and his escapability in the pocket. The guy is way more athletic than people want to give him credit for. And of course, he's white, so he's sneaky fast. White quarterbacks are always sneaky fast. They're never just fast. They're sneaky fast. And Sam Darnold falls under that sneaky fast category. Sam Darnold, when he gets hit, he doesn't necessarily fall down right away. He can fight off defensive ends, defensive tackles, and scramble for yardage. And I think that is something that we haven't really recognized as much because as soon as you touch Kirk Cousins, he's like Tom Brady in the backfield. You touch him and he goes down. Kirk Cousins doesn't really elude, fight off tacklers. Doesn't do it. Sam Darnold this year for the Minnesota Vikings. 52 attempts, 187 yards. That's 187 yards that Kirk Cousins wouldn't give you. I mean, just for comparison's sake, let's look up Kirk Cousins' rushing numbers on the Minnesota Vikings and his history with the team. Because I would assume that they're not as high as what Sam Darnold has delivered. Okay? Kirk Cousins, his last full season with the Vikings, 2022. The amount of rushing attempts, scrambles, 31 for 97 in 2022. The year before that, in 2021, 29 for 115. The Minnesota Vikings still have 6 games left to play. And Sam Darnold already has 52 carries for 187 yards. And this isn't some fabrication. In 2022, he ran for 106 yards. In 2021, he ran for 222 yards. In 2020, 217 yards. Sam Darnold can move in the pocket and can make plays with his feet. I think the knock on Sam Darnold is that sometimes he doesn't use his feet enough. Sometimes he'll have a wide open, clear pocket in front of him, and the Vikings need a yard on third down. And he'll try to fit a tight ball into Jefferson or Addison to take the free yardage. It's right there, and you're quick enough to do it. So just better arm talent, better maneuverability, if that's even a word, and just right now a better overall player than Kirk Cousins. And Colin Cowherd recognizes it, and it seems like everybody else is starting to recognize it as well. A couple of other news and notes for the Minnesota Vikings that I think need to be addressed this morning. The long snapper the Minnesota Vikings signed to replace Andrew DiPiola for a few weeks when he went on IR is back. Andrew DiPiola is back, I should say, because the Minnesota Vikings waived that long snapper. And they also have activated Will Reichard's 21-day practice window. He's not activated on the active roster yet, but they have opened up his 21-day practice window, which means the end of John Parker Romo will be happening soon on the Minnesota Vikings. And John Parker Romo, we just want to say thank you for a good several weeks for delivering, and we appreciate it. Take your game ball, go somewhere else, and please miss a ton of kicks there. We appreciated your time in Minnesota. Take your game ball, put it on your mantle, put it wherever you're going to put it, tell your grandkids about it. But go to Baltimore, replace Justin Tucker, and please miss a bunch of kicks there. That would be greatly appreciated. Thank you for your time. Isn't it funny? You know, you bring him in, kicks well. Hey, see ya. And the Minnesota Vikings did do a favor to John Parker Romo. They give him an NFL career outside of Minnesota because there's going to be another team that signs him because of what he did for the Minnesota Vikings. He played well. He missed like one kick and one extra point in 4 weeks. Had all their field goals and points against the Jacksonville Jaguars. Made a 55-yarder last week that looked like it could have been good from 60 plus. So John Parker Romo proved that he belongs on some team in the NFL and has deserved a second chance. And he can thank the Minnesota Vikings for giving him that chance. And credit to the Vikings for bringing him back because they had him in training camp, picked Will Reichard, of course, over him because that's the easy decision and right decision. But he'll be somewhere else on an NFL roster either the rest of this season when the Vikings cut him or next offseason when teams are looking to replace old washed-up kickers. So congrats to John Parker Romo for getting an opportunity in the NFL and also delivering when he got that opportunity. Because a lot of guys would fall short in that situation, especially when you're asked to come in and knock down every single point for your team to beat the lowly Jacksonville Jaguars. So good for him, but hopefully he misses a bunch of kicks for the Bears or Packers or Lions moving forward. All right. Thank you for watching this episode. Thanks for making this podcast part of your day and for going on this journey with me. Hit that subscribe button right there, and I appreciate you.